Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dads on Life, your weekly episodic show about parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Keith Bogan, Chad Roy,
Hello.
and Vince Quartararo.
How's it going?
Today, we're going to be talking about something that we've touched on before, but we're going to expand it a little bit. And that is violence and other subject matter in lyrics of music, things like that. It comes up because for me, a band by the name of State of Mind from Michigan recently released a cover of the classic song from Garth Brooks, Thunder Rolls. With that, there have been several different versions of that song that have been released. There's the full version of it, and the one that was Garth originally recorded, which cuts off at a certain point in the song. There is and State of Mind recorded. They actually have gone back and recorded the extra part as well. The original release of it, which came out last Friday, was at the same point where the radio version and Garth's original version cuts off. Basically, if you've ever heard the song, they imply she gets in a car. It's done in their video as well. She gets in a car and leaves the marriage, leaving him high and dry after he comes back from a night of what is assumed to be cheating on him. Now, the extended version, which Garth does live, the wife goes into the bedroom, retrieves the gun from the nightstand, presumably killing her husband. The band, I believe it was All That Remains, there was another hard rock band released the full-length version of it with that verse included. This, of course, there have been several songs that have been shortened because of lyrical content. And of course, as we discussed at length, there was the whole PMRC issue of one of the things they went after was violence in lyrics, which one of the songs they attacked was We're Not Gonna Take It from Twisted Sister, hence why Dee Snider testified in front of the PMRC, which was founded by former Vice President Al Gore and his wife. There's the whole speech that Dee released and Frank. It was Dee Snider, Frank Zappa, and of all people, John Denver, who testified in front of the PMRC. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about content and lyrics and things like that. There's bands that have made careers on violence and lyrics and things like that. One such band, of course, is Rage Against the Machine, among others. We'll discuss that at length over the next hour or so. As it pertains to Thunder Rolls, especially, that song had a lot of controversy that surrounded it because of the final verse. It's now in this day and age, it seems like that final verse is kind of just at this point is what it is. The song is 30 years old now almost. And it's kind of like the view of that song has changed over the progress. It's gone from it's taken on almost a nonviolent connotation too. It just kind of is innocuous and dismissed at times. But there are also other songs that really don't have a problem, and that is when you come into historical portrayals in music. It's a fine line where that kind of gets dismissed. I'd say who wants to kick us off, but Vince just apparently left again. Um, Chad, you want to start us off here?
Sure, absolutely. Thinking about how this pertains to children and how this pertained to me and Frankie growing up, there's two observations that I have. The first observation is that I think as a society, we're becoming more and more desensitized to violence, sex, drugs, those kinds of things. I mean, you just didn't see those kinds of things really, in the 1970s. I think Keith and I probably had similar experiences growing up. There were just certain things just were not talked about. We didn't have the sex on the movies like we do. And then, since then we've got cable. So that was, we went from network TV to cable TV. So that made things a little more risque. And I think video games, I think we've seen the same thing, songs, the same thing within the music industry. Now, strategy with Frankie, when he was younger, he went to a Catholic school. So, I kind of tried to put him in a little bubble for a little bit and tried to get some morals instilled a little stronger than if he would have gone to a public school. Not saying that there's anything wrong with public schools, but just, there's just a little more focus on values and those kinds of things, I think, within the Catholic school. But I knew that at some point he has to come out because, let's face it, he has to live in the real world. So in 5th grade, we transferred him out from the Catholic school to the public school. It's kind of a nice transition period because in the 6th grade, everybody starts new friendship groups, if you will. 6, 7, 8, they have the middle school there. So it's like kind of a nice natural break for them. So it was a great transition. But I will say that it went from a very different environment, where in the Catholic school they did not have that any type of controversial music playing, any type of controversial movie shown, those kinds of things, to the public school where that was much more common. Kids were coming in the morning and could play either the music. There's just a lot more cussing and those kinds of things, if you will. So to a certain extent, I tried to, my goal was, taking this stuff into account, was to try to raise him to a certain point where he had a pretty solid core, where he was pretty comfortable, where I was pretty comfortable with him understanding what was right and what was wrong before he was exposed to this, understanding that, hey, these are lyrics, but these aren't things you do in real life. And I think that transition went pretty well. And now he's a grown man, obviously, 20 years old. So he listens to what he wants to. And I don't always agree with what he listens to, but hey, it's his prerogative to do that. And I know my parents didn't always agree with what I listened to when I was growing up either. So, it's kind of my take, is our society has gotten desensitized a little bit more to sex and drugs. And that, my goal as a dad was to try to protect and build a core. And then after he had that core, then expose him to things in the real world so that he's not surprised when he gets out at an older age, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Chad, I think you're right. Our stories do reflect each other. I think I was a bit more of a hard ass. I remember on the same line of thinking as lyrics in music, and I think we talked about this in an earlier show. I had some similar sensitivities to certain video games. So the famous one from the last 10 years that was the most violent one at the time. Why am I having a mental block on it?
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto made its way into our house when Justin was around 12 or 13. And right. I had already expressed a very strong opinion that was inappropriate and I was not going to. And so she, now you know why I'm divorced. Suddenly it was here. And of course, Justin didn't buy it himself. She bought it for him. And let's just say it was returned to the store the day after I got here because I said absolutely no fucking way.
Right.
And I was probably more of a hard ass than I should have been. I probably should have taken more of a time to sit down and have a conversation, especially with her. But I had made my feelings known, and we'd had long conversations about inappropriate content before. So I I acknowledge that I definitely overreacted, but the result would have been the same. And the same is true with musical lyrics. Growing up, I think I was probably less conversational about it with my kids and more of, if there's cursing and violence in the lyrics, it's just not going to be allowed in our house. We're not even going to talk about it.
Right.
But I find it funny now that, Justin, being 21 in particular, loves to have a whole lot of stuff downloaded on in his online media. I don't even know which accounts he has. And then we'll drive together, like up and down from South Carolina to New Jersey, and he'll play his stuff. And there's a lot of cursing and other shit going on in there, and he just plays it. And, like he knows that I'm not going to object anymore because he's 21. And even his brother, who's 18, he doesn't play stuff like that out loud in my presence, at least. But at this age is But in my house, if you were under 18, that's just not going to fly. And I'm not look, I curse like a sailor, but I also think that role modeling is important. We've talked about that a lot. And, I'm not nearly as specific on lyrics, and I can't quote songs or lyrics or anything like that like you guys can, but
Right.
I'll still look at Justin when we're driving and I'll be like, really? And then we'll just laugh because we know he's 21, so nobody cares. And he doesn't listen to a lot of bad stuff, but there's stuff in there that he listens to, particularly in the rap side, that gets pretty racy. I'm not more specific about that because I'm not the kind of person who remembers artists or lyrics or anything like that. But I can be a little conservative in that area, which is kind of funny because I'm not usually conservative in any area.
Right.
But I think that too, Keith, it kind of, there's a transition, I think, for parents when you go from like protecting your child to when you're listening to the music, maybe you don't enjoy it, but you try to understand what's going on and to, and to appreciate the things that your children appreciate as well. It's some level. Maybe it's not a full appreciation, right? But at least you're exposed to it at some level.
Right. Like for me growing up, there was, I grew up, my mid-teens were 90, 93, 94, right around when a lot of the grunge music and the bands like Rage Against the Machine came along. I was clearly exposed to violence and lyrics with the song "Come As You Are" was one of the first. There was sex in the lyrics in the 80s, obviously, innuendo all over the place, actual mention of it at times. So it kind of just was clearly just overlooked and was what it was. Now, then you had a song like "Come As You Are," which was one of the first ones. And then it was "Come As You Are," and then "Killing in the Name Of" was another one that was like right after that from also the song "Freedom" from Rage Against the Machine. I'll get to that in a second. But you had "Come As You Are," where he's singing, and "Jeremy" was another one. Jeremy from Pearl Jam was another one that clearly I don't remember it actually being said, except for the fact in the video, there's a lot of violent overtone. In the song there is as well, but then again,
Jeremy was actually the name of the song?
Yes.
I would have named my kid differently if I'd known that.
You didn't know the name of the song from Pearl Jam where the guy basically...
I told you I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot when it comes to this shit.
Yeah, the song is called Jeremy. Anyway, "Come As You Are," well, I swear it, I don't have a gun, blah, 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 blah. There's that whole... And then it goes a little bit... They went into it a little bit more in a couple other songs. And then, of course, the tragic event of Kurt Cobain committing suicide. You get that kind of open exposure right away in your teens. It's kind of like, all right, obviously this kind of, you get desensitized to it real quick. And then you have, like I said, Rage Against the Machine, "Killing in the Name Of." There's obviously innuendos and in a connotation in that song all over the place. Another song of theirs was their first single, which was Freedom. Song Freedom is, I mean, it was blasted all over their video. The video for the song Freedom as well is about, and ended up becoming a movement for the petition of the release of Leonard Peltier, who was an American Indian movement activist who was jailed after an incident with the police. The story is not great. Peltier is not the best guy. There's been calls for pardon for a very long time, but anyway, and like I said, his story is blasted all over that video, and MTV played the crap out of that and those songs and Killing of the Name of and Bulls on Parade and all that stuff until they stopped playing videos in the mid 1990s, I believe. All over the place. Now, those songs, obviously, with most of these bands still being around, like Nine Inch Nails and variations of Alice in Chains, obviously Pearl Jam's still around. Pearl Jam has taken on a more political view of the world at this point. But there's, like, we listen to XM quite a lot. One of the things that Elise will flip off, first off, because she doesn't like Rage Against the Machine, so that usually gets turned off right away. But when it comes to lyrical content of songs, the song Closer from Nine Inch Nails is pretty much immediately turned off. For obvious reasons, if you ever heard the song, it's essentially about S&M, kinds of sexual acts, down to him saying, I want to fuck you like an animal. So that is one of those ones that's immediately changed in front of the girls for obvious reasons, like I said. But then you kind of cross into songs that have their historical
Like Sabaton.
What's that?
Like Sabaton.
Yes. There's a ton of there's songs about directly about the Vietnam War, songs about World War II. There's historical songs all over the place. I mean, some of them take liberties and bring fiction into it, but yeah, that's one of those things that may be a little bit tougher to address, and we're addressing it in its form of what the song is about, what it's written for. So it's a fine line at times with lyrics in songs.
You remember Good Morning Vietnam and the way songs would be censored, and the Robin Williams character would get upset because songs would be censored. Yeah, whatever you just said just kind of totally took me back to that movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, there was.
Chad's a senior citizen. That's even before his time. So
there's a lot in there. Pretty much, I think that was basically, they didn't want him to play any songs after like 1960 in that movie. And it's essentially, it does really nothing about that was essentially not wanting to rile the troops up, sort of, which was essentially his character and what he did the whole movie, antagonizing the troops that were stationed where he was broadcasting.
I wouldn't call it antagonizing. I'd call it
uplifting.
Inspiring.
Well, there's some antagonistic points as well there. So honestly, you're talking about that movie. There's some great characters and some great actors in that movie. Some of them very early in their career, you just go, "What? He really was in that?"
Hey, hold on a second. I'm gonna say something that could have a political bend to it, but we're not gonna go down the road. I just found it curious that the same people who would want us to um, not broadcast stuff like that, to oh, it's obscene, it's immoral, and all that sort of thing. Aren't they the same ones today who are saying that big tech is censoring everything that we do? I'm going to leave that alone. We're just going to move right along, but
Some of
that's
them,
a fun little topic there.
some of them.
I would say it's different people now.
Well, most of them are dead. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
rich. Or rich.
Just follow the money. Just follow the money.
But even like if you think about like Elvis Presley when he first came on TV and all the parents were all up in uproar about his Elvis the pelvis, and he can't dance like that. That's nothing. Nowadays, I mean, we look at that and we go, some dude dancing, and then now there's some videos out there that get pretty racy and show a lot and
performances. I mean, and that dates back. The performances that date back to the mid '80s. I'm sure we've all seen or at least heard about Madonna on the MTV Music Awards, writhing around, rolling around the stage, doing like a virgin.
See, that Chad and I saw that live, so I don't want to talk about that.
If I may here, because you guys keep coming back to it's the same topic, but it's also actually a branch of the initial topic. The initial topic being the lyrics, the actual vocal, hearing part. And we keep coming back to the, music video. So now it's the vocal and the visual, hitting both senses there. And it's interesting because yeah, like lyrics and music, all right, the instruments and everything like that is one thing as fathers, and I mean, as anybody, you have to be aware of whatever you're putting in. But when you get into the visualizations, all right, MTV, VH1, we're like the big bringers on of it. Now it's YouTube and any other number of websites. But I was reading, trying to get kind of an idea of how to tie in maybe some other stuff here. I was reading different things from pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatrics, who have been trying to do studies of how music and videos and everything correlate with children and youth and adolescents, etc. And the majority of what I was able to bring up, there was definitely things that they noticed with just lyrics. But once you started putting in the video and the lyrics, all of a sudden there was a much more concrete cycle, if you will, of noticeable differences in how children and adolescents acted versus them trying to just study the lyrics, which I thought was really interesting because, especially like I know in my own house, my son loves to watch like the gamers, all right, Minecraft or Lego or whatever. And, and a lot, the gamers, I keep a regulation of like who is there because, some of them are good, some of them are bad. And there's really no one, specific, but, even limiting how much he takes that in, because it's just like, okay, you're just constantly taking in, you're taking in visually, and you're, even though he's seeing how to construct things for Legos and he's getting a lot of these ideas, at the same time, he's zoned out. So he's more isolated. He's more, tired when he comes off of it, which was something I know, like growing up, my mother used to always complain about. It's like, oh, you just got done playing Super Mario. Now you want to just go right to bed. And, because I would like vegetate. And then I'm spending so much energy focusing on what is going on, but, so I thought that was interesting, especially since, everybody here is bringing up about, we're getting more into the music video. And I was like, oh, how ironic, because I was just reading about that. There's definitely a wider impact when you have more of the senses getting touched on. lyrics themselves, I know, I mean, even listening to some of the older 50s music that I grew up listening to with my mom, and the oldies station when there was an actual oldies station. Now the oldies station makes me look like Chad. No offense, Chad. All right,
Oh.
but it's one of those. It's one of those where even if you listen to those actual lyrics, I mean, there's some really sexual or even smutty stuff. I mean, and even if you go into sacred literature, you read some of the songs of Solomon. I mean, he gets pretty intense talking about his wife. Now, granted, he's talking about his wife, but it's still the lyrics, so. And then, yeah, we could say, oh, well, no, it's the death metal or it's rap or whatever. Like, hey, it could be country. It could be, like I said, from one of Solomon's own songs, but the lyrics are the lyrics. It's not really one individual genre, if you will. You can't just be like, okay, these 5, throw them out. Don't ever, it's like, no, that's where it comes down to, as fathers, especially. Like I think Chad and I think Keith, I think you guys both touched on it, where you set that foundation. And you help them to be able to extrapolate the good, even from the bad. All right, and build upon that, because at some point, as much as I don't want to, but at some point, my son is gonna go off. And I'm not going to see him for, however long periods of times. He's going to have other influences. And if he doesn't have that foundation, then, it doesn't really matter what he falls into as far as music wise, all right, the love or, really like or whatever. If he doesn't have that foundation on how to extrapolate the good out of the bad, or how to put up a barrier so that certain lyrics aren't actually manipulating how he's going to react to everybody, then we're doing something wrong, because and again, as fathers, all right, we can't just say, oh, listen to whatever you want when he's 1, 4, 5, 10, 12, even 15, I dare say. That would be like the same, like saying, okay, I have a son and just let the world raise him, but you're going to live under my roof. Like, no, we have a responsibility. All right. And we got to put those checks and balances in there. But also we got to, there are certain things, like Keith said, that it's just like, put an axe to it, not even gonna allow that, like my son's 9, so there's a good amount of that you can, all you guys can understand where I'm coming from, especially with the internet being where it is. It's like, nope, put up as many firewalls as possible. We don't need that coming in a Google search. All right. But I think more importantly, one of the things I love, in my personal way, and I'm always willing to learn myself, is and it's also really hard to get to my point here, is where, when your son or daughter or whatever comes up to you and says, why, or why not, or what's so wrong about this? And it's like, you okay, you sit there. Like I said, there's some things where it's like, nope, guillotine, it's a closed subject, go find something different. But there's that question, and we all hear it a lot from our kids. Why or why not, or what's the difference, or Lucas listens to it, so why can't I? All those questions give us the opportunity to help them extrapolate why you don't listen to, all right, Jason, you brought up Closer by 9 Inch Nails. All right, it's like, all right, I'm not going to let I love 9 Inch Nails, but I'm not going to let Michael listen to Closer. All right. But if he listens to it, all right, then it's like, all right, well, why is it wrong? It's like, okay, well, this gives us an opportunity to communicate and build that. Okay, this is why, it's wrong, or this is why when you're going out there, you need to put that checks and balances in. All right. point where it would be, whatever we're taking into our system, is what eventually comes out of our system, so whether it be by music or instrumental or video or whatever,
Well, and Vince, I think you hit
but
on, I was gonna say, Vince, you hit on something really good too. Is like with the internet, and how kids learn about sex. When Keith and I were growing up, what do we have? We had National Geographic. Maybe our dads or some other dad had Playboy or something like that, right? And you go in to like look at these pictures. Now at our kids' fingertips, and every kid just about has a phone, right, or access at some point to the internet. They can search up stuff and they can find some stuff that's kind of messed up. Now I'm super, if people have variety in their sex life or whatever, that's their thing. But I don't necessarily need my 9 or 10-year-old looking at stuff that's a little more, I'm just going to say it's advanced maybe, because that can really mess with perceptions of how to treat people and what relationships look like and those kinds of things. So
Yep.
That's some stuff too that kind of the next level, if you will, of going beyond music and movies,
Right.
the expressions of love and pornography and how you learn about sex.
Right. And Chad, I like that you brought that up. And I think we definitely need to have a show about that specific topic. All right. But I like how you brought that up, because that was something else I was thinking about where, a lot of my friends, I shouldn't say a lot, but I had friends on all different genres. So we had rap, we had, like I said, all of them. I'm not going to list them. I'd be here all day. All right. But more to current. All right. My niece loves this new rap. All right. Which to me doesn't sound anything like the old rap. All right. And
New rap. What do you mean new rap?
I don't know. Hulu just made a movie about one of the guys that she idolizes.
Is it
Oh, like the mumble rap stuff?
I call it, let's just put every dirty word into a sentence and I'm going to make $1 million. All right. And that's what I'm calling the new rap, because that's all I hear come out of a number of these kids' iPods. And to me, I feel like puking, but hey, whatever. Okay. Moving on. All right. The new rap. Let's, what I was getting to was with lyrics. All right. Is if you took the lyrics and you hired a famous painter, like Richard Bober or something. He did all the paperback Hitchcock covers. He did an Alice in Wonderland that's somewhere's up the East Coast, I think, like a 10-foot by 12-foot painting. Anyway, you hire a professional artist and you give them the lyrics to a song and say, paint me what this is. All right. And you even bring in the band members and the other people come in, everybody gets together, they paint the picture, and then you look at the picture and it's like, well, if that picture looks like something out of a Fox magazine or something out of National Geographic, well, now you get a better idea on like how, whether we're 9, 10, 15, 30 or whatever, we should be judging this stuff. All right. And I'm not saying you got to judge the person that's listening to it or putting it out. All right. I won't go into that part, but I'm saying just as an individual, and that goes back to that foundation where it's like, hey, if you're painting a picture and it's doing this to this person, all right, it's like, well, do you really think that's a good thing? Do you really think that's something you should be lifting up? You should be, and then, so there's that part too. And that also ultimately, I think, would go into where, the pediatrics academy and everything talks about with visual, movie videos, is like, well, if we teach our children to use their imagination, to not just let the words come in and do whatever they do, all right, like a fungus, all right, to take the words, to really think about the words, to dissect the words, digest the words, paint a picture with those words, put your imagination to use, put your intellect to use, all right, it'll set them off on a much stronger foundation moving forward into their life.
There was another, now moving on to something else, about lyrical content. There was this weird time, not long, actually right along the time that everything was going on with bands like Rage Against the Machine and Nirvana and all that. There was this weird moment in music when Tom Petty released a song called "You Don't Know How It Feels," and that lyric, there was a lyric in that song that was essentially, it's like somebody hit the dump button and hit fast forward at the same time. So it was this weird noise. It ended up sounding like Narj over the word marijuana. Sorry, joint. Actually, it was joint. He used the word joint. Let's roll another joint was the line. And it just was like, it almost made it, and it weirdly, the way they did it, well, I mean, I know why they did it. Obviously, they now, if the song's released now, there'd be no edit to that song at all, because of, especially with the way, if you listen to like 3/4 of the country music, they were all smoking weed, all of them, every single fucking one of them, is high as a kite. It sounds like at this point, it's like Willie Nelson times 25 with all of them. It almost was more obscene with the way they edited that lyric than it should have been, by just keeping the word joint in there. And that was one of the only instances I can remember at that time. Maybe it was one of the only references at the time. I don't know, but that's one of the incidents of changing the lyric or changing something. I mean, of course, we all know the famous story of the Doors on Ed Sullivan, where they were asked to take out the word higher from "Come On, Light My Fire," which they didn't. In fact, Jim basically ran up to the camera and screamed the lyric as he was singing the song.
God bless.
But
Jim.
yeah, what's that?
I said, God bless Jim. I love the Doors.
Which is funny because about a year and a half or 2 years later, the song was sold into a car commercial, and Jim hated that fact that Robbie did that. And it was one of the biggest points of contention for the rest of the band's career with Jim, was Robbie selling the song to a car company, which Jim was like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, yeah, that it was, like I said, it was just a very strange edit the way it was done. Like I said, I understand why it was done, but it seems like drugs were, again, one of the things that was given a pass. Because if you listen to, through innuendo or actual use of the word, there's a ton of drug references from all the way back. 50, 60 years now, you're talking of, there's drug references in music all over the place.
Are we talking about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds again? Because that's what I know of.
Oh, Lucy with this, 3/4 of the Beatles. Yellow Submarine, you think they weren't scraping Ringo off the ceiling before they did that song? Come on now. Yeah, the Beatles were high through most of their early career. And it's kind of it definitely finds its way in the lyrics with their, I mean, yeah, it seems like drugs and alcohol especially, is given a pass through music.
Because it wasn't considered a drug until very, very recently, so it was glorified. That's fine to put in there, even in front of children. I don't know, Chad. I have a question for you. I don't mean to break Jason's mojo there, but
No, that's okay.
When do you think, Chad, that these youngsters are going to start being their parents like we have become our parents, where we sometimes listen to our kids' music and say, they're just screaming, that's not music? Because I know.
Oh, no. It's not screaming. Oh, no. The screaming I like.
See, they're not old enough yet. They don't get it. They're about 5-10 years from now, they'll be like grumpy like their parents, like we are now. So it's okay.
They'll do what we have done, I think, and a lot of that is having a lot of a great affinity for the music that we listen to, and judging the new music coming out by those standards and being, well, it's not like I listen to, so there's a problem with it of some sort, right? It's it's like my son at times is like he likes a lot of different things. He likes a variety of things, but we talked a little bit about mumble rap. I'm just like, what is he saying? It's like I can't even understand what the guy's saying, and he's saying words very fast, and he's contorting the words to rhyme when it's not even really a rhyme. But it'll come, it'll happen. I think you're probably right, Keith. It's probably going to be in 10 years they'll start going, having something to say about other music.
I don't know why we hang out with these youngsters, or they start burping themselves, for crying out loud.
Well, you hang out with us because somebody's got to wipe your butt in 5 years.
I dread, and I digress here. I just want to talk about this for 1 second, because it'll lead into something else. You'll see you'll hear in a second what I'm going into. I dread the halftime show next week for the big game, because you can't say the words anymore. For the big game, the real reference to it, you can't actually say it. Big thing, you haven't been able to say it really for years. No one says it if you listen. And that is the halftime performance for next week's game is someone called The Weeknd. And it is going to be the longest halftime performance in history of 24 minutes, which is nearly double the length the performer is usually given. Now, the guy sucks. His music is absolutely horrible. It is going to be 24 minutes of, oh God, please make this end. Please make this end. Please make this end. Now,
what you don't like Starboy or I Can't Feel My Face?
The only song that I like from him is the one that really sounds like he ripped off an 80s song with the keyboard. Can't remember the name of it.
What is this we're talking about?
The Weeknd.
Never heard of it. How could they do a show that half the population's never even heard of?
Put on a radio station that plays music after 1997 and you'll figure it out.
Hold on, Jason. There was no music made after 1992. What are you talking about? I got the finger. Yes, do it again. We're on camera.
Oh, and I'll get back now. I'll get back to that in a few minutes. I'll flip this into another discussion here of the topic of. I'm sure if you remember, I hopefully. Yeah. We will not see any body parts of The Weeknd we do not want to see, which has happened during performances, halftime performances during the big game.
Janet Jackson. Oh,
it was a little rough last year too. Either it wasn't as racy as that one, but last year's was a little dicey at times. But yeah, there was that famous incident where a lot of people were affected by that performance.
I thought last year's show was spectacular and very, very, very well done.
I did too, and I tell you what, from the perspective of the Latin community,
exactly.
Shakira is from Barranquilla, so I wasn't paying attention to what was going on, but at that time I was back in the States, so I sent her videos of like Shakira, and like she did things that they do here, like Carnival, that people didn't get. Like, that's something they do during Carnival, and and people here are like, oh yeah, and then like Bad Bunny, J-Lo, J Balvin. So
I was the one thing that upset me about one of Shakira's performances was she did the song with another artist. And I think it might have been, I don't know who it was, but she did.
Bad Bunny, I think.
What'd you say?
I think probably with Bad Bunny.
Right.
And- and the-
But the song was originally done with Wyclef Jean, and he wasn't doing it. That was the one thing that really upset me about that. I thought that the tongue thing was actually something to do with something else in her heritage besides from Colombia. I thought it was something else about her nationality that she had done it. That it was
Well,
something.
her father's Lebanese, I know.
That's it. It was Lebanese. That was it. It's Lebanese. Yeah, that was the tongue thing. It was Lebanese. Thank you. But then like I said, we had that performance from now almost 20 years ago. And that affected some people's careers. It took, which ironically, one of the big things that helped kind of bring Justin Timberlake back into the good graces of society was another racy kind of thing that he did, was a certain song called in a Box. Like he did on SNL, and that kind of brought him back to everybody's attention for something funny, kind of obviously poking fun, that he did with Andy Samberg. But no, I mean, it's happened throughout award shows and everything like that. Famous incident with Guns N' Roses where they won a Grammy and showed up completely sloshed, with Slash and Duff McKagan dropping, I think, like 4 or 5 F-bombs in their speech. So this has happened. This has happened in the past before, obviously. Like I said, and
some of that I think too is like those guys are just, they're trying to be the rock stars that people think they are, right? So Guns N' Roses has this reputation, and they've got to kind of reinforce that a little bit. And and I think even with the what they call a word malfunction, which you're talking about, like some of that stuff, I'm like, I don't know that she did that on purpose, and I certainly think it, she
did it on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't
a big deal, but that star was strategically placed. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
You're muted, Vince.
You're muted.
When the heck did that happen? I don't know.
5 minutes
What are you
ago.
talking about,
Probably
Steve? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I would like to sincerely apologize to anyone for the first nudity on this show, by the way.
Wait, what?
The cat's asshole that was shown when the show
Yeah, I
started.
didn't grab her fast enough.
So
Well,
apparently
that's
we
why
had
we
a
have the
wardrobe
adult rating.
malfunction too.
Yes, we did have wardrobe.
And the cat did it on purpose.
Yeah.
But no, that star was strategically placed. I mean, maybe you were only
Ratings
supposed
will
to
go
the
up.
outline of it, but
Our YouTube ratings might go up now. That's good.
thank God that cup was empty.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna make a joke about the pasties, but that ship sailed away. But one of the things though, you and Chatter, crap. There we go. It sounded like one of the things you guys were touching on though too was performers, whether it be musicians or shows, whatever, where especially nowadays, it just seems like they don't have a full regard or rather red pen striking out what they're putting out. They're just like, hey, producer says if I do this and I wear this and I say this, I'm gonna get this. So screw it, I'll do it. It almost kind of like that article that Doug sent us about Ninja Gaiden, whoever. And he's like, well, it's not my position to teach kids or whatever. And it's like, well, it's not your position to teach. I don't expect, if I go to a concert, for the guy to go up there and have a 2-hour monologue about what his personal whatever morals, ideals are. But you do have to have some type of a positive role model. I mean, because you are a role model. If you have millions of fans, guess what? You're a role model. And don't sit here and say, "Oh, how dare all those people went and look at them. What's going on?" And you're like, "Well, buddy, you just did this, and this, and you said all this stuff in here, and you promoted this by doing this." Like, well, you helped make those people, dude. All right, now man up.
Right.
Which also then goes into the ego. Maybe the pasty did fall off. Maybe she, I don't know, whatever. Maybe it was just an ego and a publicity, and I get money because here we are. That was like what, 14 years ago, and we're still talking about the lack of glue on the pasty or whatever. All right, so, but it still comes back down to the musicians, performers. All right, we as fathers, and then we teach our children. All right, is we're all a role model, and then when you have an actual following, all right, and you have a crowd, guess what, Chuck? You're a role model, whether you signed on for it or not. It's in there. All right. It's in the invisible ink, that every kid wants to buy at the book fair,
Right. Right. Now, it's interesting you mentioned role models and perception and what this is nothing really to do with censorship, but this is somebody who has become a role model, especially for young women. And that is the performer Pink, who actually put on
I remember. Yeah.
hell of a halftime performance several years ago, or was involved in one. And she's kind of, when it comes to performances, her performance is up there with Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars recently, some of the better ones. But you mentioned about what people tell you to do. Pink, when she released her first album, it was L.A. Reid. She mentions it in the song, in one of her songs on her second album, Misunderstood. She was told by L.A. Reid, who is a very famous producer, founder of LaFace Records with Babyface. She was told by L.A. Reid, you're going to be a big star, but you have to change everything you are. And she was kind of more musical into not really R&B, the R&B side of it. She was more into different types of music. And she changed it, did everything LA said, and the album absolutely tanked. It now is done better, but that is after the release of her second album. When she went to LA, they both agreed it did not work what they did on the first album. She turned around and said, well, can I go hire a producer who I might want to work with? And turned to a one-hit wonder singer from the band Four Non-Blondes, Linda Perry, to help co-write her and produce her second album, and put in that line in one of the songs about LA told me, all I have to do, you'll be a big pop star, all I have to do is change everything I am. And then it goes into, talking about like Britney Spears and that, but not negatively. She kind of goes, she's so pretty, that just ain't me. That's another line she uses in that same lyrical line. I'm tired of being compared to damn Britney Spears. She's so pretty, that's just not me. And in those moments of doing songs for Misunderstood, her career took off. And Linda Perry made her career. And LA, it's one of the times that L.A. Reid has had to face the fact that he really didn't have a great finger on the pulse with her. And she's become a huge role model because of basically telling L.A. Reid to stick it. The album was released on LaFace. She made L.A. Reid a ton of money after that, and has become a very positive role model for young females. Has her moments where she doesn't know how to things that aren't taken in the greatest light, but has become a great role model. You were talking about role models. That's one. There's a bunch of, you can look to a bunch of musicians and people like that who have become role models despite what they may say or do. And some of them do have some connotations in their lyrics that may not be too great in their the way they word things, and when it comes to violence and things in their lyrics. Because for some musicians, it's the way they were brought up, where they were brought up, that some of it, that's really all they know in their lives. And there's some musicians who use music to get out of that situation. So while it's very difficult to do, it just, music is a gateway to get people into a better situation. Now, there's another person who released a song a couple of years ago, and again, also has gone viral. It's actually very viral. I believe she actually has, can't remember her name exactly. I'll get it later. It's a song essentially for, it's a tribute to first responders. The first verse of the song, or second verse of the song, I'm not sure, comes off where somebody calls 911 because of a situation they are in, domestic violence situation. And this has become a trend now, and a positive trend, to where they'll call 911 and order usually a pepperoni pizza. It has taken a while for it to take hold, but it is now being understood that this situation is a domestic violence. And it is getting her song, which clearly it doesn't promote violence, but discusses it, is getting the word out for helping curb domestic violence, taking care of situations that need to be taken care of before they get too far out of hand, or taking care of them if they have gotten out of hand. So this is another touchy situation where you can use violence in your lyrics to promote something positively and kind of stand up for what is needed to be stood up for. So you have that as well. Like I said, whoever wants to take it from here for a moment, I can get her name real quick. But I'm actually noticing now we're coming up pretty close to the hour here. Anybody else want to have anything to add before
Definitely want to hear what you're talking about, because it's hard for me to imagine the idea of using violence to attract attention so that you can talk about things like first responder stuff or frontline workers or something like that. I mean, I don't know what would possess somebody to do that, but this is, kind of like me sounding like the old man again. Just I know there's a lot of noise out there, and it's hard to get anything noticed, even if it's really good, because there's so much noise. But the idea of turning to lyrics that are provocative in a very negative sort of way, just to get your positive message heard, makes my skin crawl.
Her name is Shannon Jackman. The song is called Answer the Call. It is the second verse. I will read it quickly. 911, what's your emergency? She said, I'd like to order a pizza, please. But ma'am, you reached 911. She said, I know. Could you say how long? Ma'am, is everything okay? No, it's 413 Maple Way, giving the address. is there someone in the room with you that you can't talk about? She said, yes, sir. Pepperoni, please. How long will it be now? I got an officer a mile away. Can you stay on the line? She said, no, thanks. I'll see you soon. I'll turn on my porch light. And this rest of the song, the first verse is about there's several verses about, just the first responders. The song is specifically written for first responders. That's why a song is called Answer the Call. But yeah, the pepperoni pizza is becoming something in domestic violence cases.
It's a brilliant set of lyrics, if you ask me. It's great. And what it does is it teaches an entire generation of people, particularly women, what the codes should be. But of course, because it's now out in the public airways, now the codes are known. But there's still got to be ways to have conversations like that. I like that. That's very, very interesting.
I'll post the song in a few minutes, but yeah, I heard that's and on TikTok, it is one of the most reposted audios around right now. Song is almost 4 years old, and it's just to actually listen to her sing the song and sing that lyric, it really just sends chills up your spine almost to hear.
You'll send that to us, I presume.
Yes, yes, I will post it on after the
show. With our massive following of people who listen to this podcast, let's make sure that they can hear this too.
Yeah, I also am going to put up the State of Mind where it cuts off the version of Thunder Rolls that came out last week. Anybody else have anything to add before we wrap this up?
Not me.
I think we're good unless you want to go for another hour.
We're trending towards that. We're over an hour now. Keith, anything to add before?
I'm amazed I talked as much as I did. I getting back to the very basics of what the whole conversation, because we've had a lot of specifics that I don't necessarily know. I'm not a big lyrics guy, but I for some reason, I just remember, I had this snippet. My father's been gone now almost 40 years. But this conversation made me remember a moment, just one picture, if you will. And it was somewhere around a year or two before he passed, that where I remember we were all in a room, we could hear Billy Joel playing. And I was just at the beginning of my Billy Joel fandom. He hit the scene in 74. I was starting to listen to him in 77, 78, something like that. And whatever the song was, it was one of the more popular tracks at the time. And I'm just loving it. I'm having a good time. I'm juking in my seat, and I'm having and Dad's sitting there with that stoic look. But I looked under the table, and there was his foot tapping just a little bit. And that was my father's only concession to the possibility that this music where everybody's screaming actually might be something he liked. It was the only moment I can remember ever where there was some kind of sign from Dad that said, okay, it's not so bad.
Well, actually, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I posted something earlier of the aforementioned Billy Joel going absolutely ape shit in Moscow.
Who was he upset at? I couldn't tell.
What'd you say?
Who was he upset at? I couldn't tell.
A lighting guy, one of his own people, and either a stage producer or something like that, one of his own people. In fact, the altercation got worse backstage with Billy screaming and cursing and dropping the F-bomb quite a few times in front of reporters. It was made a story. They called him the Red Menace or something like that for a couple of days before he went to Leningrad. And but yeah, he destroyed his piano that night.
Since we've talked about it here in front of our massive audience, you should also post that link in the group as well.
Mm-hmm. I will. There's a couple of things I got to post.
Yep. It looked like he tried to kill somebody who was performing with him by swinging the microphone stand toward the end.
No, he was pissed. He smashes the piano with it, another piano with it, actually. It's the Casio basically that he dumps with the mic on it, grabs another mic, and then smashes that mic stand as well. And he's basically singing with part of the microphone like Freddie Mercury at the end of it. We pretty much have reached the end here. For as long as there has been music, there has been some lyrics that have had questionable content. And there will always be questionable content in lyrics because of everybody having an opinion, everybody having a different thought, a different theory, a different background, something about the way they were raised, something about what they saw in their youth, something that happened to them in their lifetime. Nature, nurture, whatever it be, music is part of the world. It's a big part of the world, and it will continue to be a big part of the world. So anybody who thinks that these topics in lyrics, sex, drugs, violence are going away anytime soon, kidding yourself. It's a simple fact that these things are not going away for a very long time, and they're going to be here as long as music is.
Going away soon. The old man in me is saying, what the hell is next?
With what we've been going through the last year, anything.
Don't ask that question.
With it, anything can happen, as we've seen. From all of us here on Dads on Life, take care, everybody.
Take care.
Guys,
Ciao.
bye-bye.